Welcome to A Leader Story, where we explore the unique paths of extraordinary leaders. In each episode, we ask the same 7 questions to our guests, revealing the diverse journeys and insights that shape their success. Join us as we uncover the stories that make each leader's experience truly one of a kind. Today, we're excited to introduce Stacie Atwater, a seasoned leader with over 2 decades of experience in business technology and IT operations. Currently the Senior Director of Business Technology at Go1, Stacie has also held key roles at Solidigm, Procore Technologies, and Western Digital. Her expertise spans enterprise applications, data analytics, and operational excellence. Join us as we dive into Stacie's journey, leadership insights, and the impactful work she's driving in the tech industry. Let's dive right into our conversation with our first question. Stacie, what is one decision you made that was a turning point for your leadership?
Yeah, this is a great question. Really, it honestly was just discovering how much I really do love building and leading teams. And, kind of how I got there was a few companies ago, I ended up leaving that company to go to another company. So then I went to Solidigm. And the position that I was leading was a team, leader, managing the finance and legal applications. I had a great team, but, I ended up leaving to go to Solidigm, and the position at Solidigm was not in a leadership position. It was not, I didn't have any direct reports. I wasn't in charge of architecting the strategy and the vision and, deciding how the team was going to operate. And I quickly realized, this is probably not the best decision for me because I realized that's exactly what I love to do. I love building teams. I love leading teams. I love problem solving with teams. And not having the ability to do that, it was very eye-opening to me in that moment that, okay, no, this was not the right decision. I really do need to be in a leadership position. So it was tough, but
Yeah.
Really good lesson. I think it's just really important to know what you like and what you want to be doing. And so I learned it the hard way, but it was still a great lesson.
The only way you would know that is to make the wrong decision, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to make that decision to really figure out what you want, right?
That's right. And I think, when I reflect back on it, I think like, why did I make that decision? And part of the reason was, there were so many of our previous, colleagues and leaders that had landed over at Solidigm. And the opportunity to stand up a $5 billion startup, like that sounded crazy. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. But when I reflect back on, why did I want to accept that role? And I think I thought that it was going to give me more room to breathe and it was going to be less stressful. And, I just come off of Procore's, run at their IPO, and leading up to an IPO is just, it's crazy. It's just that there's so much work to be done. And so I was tired, but I realized that it actually was more stressful for me because I wasn't fulfilled.
Interesting.
I wasn't fulfilled. Yeah. And so it actually stressed me out even more because I just felt like I'm not, really inspired or really like super attached to the work that I'm doing, where I always feel that way when I've got a team of people that I'm leading,
That's super good. I'm in awe of what you just said around how it was more stressful being unfulfilled. And that I think is something that people just don't think. There's more FOMO probably on your side of not joining, and then come to find out, no, there's a different type of stress that comes with, not being where you're supposed to be. That's good. Go to the next question. So now that you're back into what you want to be doing at Go1, how do you foster innovation and creativity within your team?
One of our thematic goals for the year is elevating the employee experience through technology. I'm just really challenging my team to think of ways that we can do that, whether that's through enabling self-service, looking for opportunities to improve or automate processes, make data more accessible. I think like the key is just really making the space and creating the opportunity for the teams to actually do that. It's so easy to get caught up in a cycle of like, well, we're too busy to innovate because we're keeping the lights on, It is really hard for people to think strategically when their hair is constantly on fire. Trying to make space for the team to be creative and innovative is to understanding what's keeping us from doing that. If there's an area or an application that's just really unstable, or a stakeholder group that's always unhappy, it's like instead of constantly putting out the same fires over and over again, we got to go figure out why that area keeps catching on fire. So be a fire investigator instead of a firefighter, and then when you have less fire, it just creates a calmer environment where people actually have the brain space to be able to dig into a problem and say, okay, how can I actually, if this is repeatable, then I can automate it. So let's dig in and figure it out. Is it a technology gap that we have? I think that's the easiest way I think I can explain to do that.
Can I double click?
Yeah.
So, you bring up an interesting point, right? Because I think sometimes your teams and team members add value to some of those mundane things.
Yes.
And so how do you remove them from that so you can open up the creativity?
I recently ran into this problem. So when I first got to Go One, I immediately started looking for opportunities to make the employee experience better through technology. And I immediately wanted to bring in MoveWorks and explain some of the different use cases for a tool like MoveWorks. And, one of them is it's like password resets. Like, I said to the team, nobody here is getting juice out of resetting passwords, right? Right.
Yeah,
and most of them said, no, yeah, we hate this. But there's a few people that are like, no, actually, I mean, if you automate those things, now what am I going to do? Right. And so I think being able to ease the fear of automating people out of jobs, I think is really critical. But you have to explain to them like what replaces the mundane work. If you didn't have to churn through 50 tickets of password resets every single time, like iPhone, puts out a new iPhone, it happens. Like every single time the new iPhone comes out, we're like, okay, we're going to get a bunch of password reset requests. It's just silly. If you didn't have to do that, what could we be doing? And that's when you really get to start building a really fun portfolio of work for the team to start thinking about. If I didn't have to do this, and what fun and exciting things could I be doing?
That's good.
I mean, how much better is it to have a system implementation like MoveWorks on your resume, where you can say, I automated 38% of the tickets that were coming to my service desk. Like that's game changing,
For sure. Yep.
I think it's just dispelling the fear and just getting them excited about what they could be doing instead of the mundane, repetitive, soul-sucking tasks.
Yep. That's really good. That's really good. Yeah. I think that actually leads well into our next question. So how do you balance driving results with maintaining a positive team culture?
Yeah, I think on this one, prioritization and workload management is super critical, because how do you know that you're working on the right things? I think there's nothing more deflating than constantly having to prioritize a project and then back burner it and, bring it back, and then you deliver it and it's not what anybody wanted. And so just making sure that you're working on the right things at the right time for the right reasons, I think is really critical. So we have a pretty, solid process for intaking work and then prioritizing that work and constantly recalibrating the prioritization order with stakeholders to make sure, hey, when we first got this request 3 months ago, this was the most important thing. Is this still the most important thing?
Yeah.
And then planning and executing that work and then just doing that cycle over and over again. I guess that goes to the next part of it, is you're putting the right people on your team.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm a big believer, if you got a team of A players, they want to deliver value. They want to be able to complete a project and celebrate the end of that project and celebrate what they delivered to their stakeholders, how they made their lives easier and better. B players can't fly under the radar on a team like that.
No.
And the brilliant jerks won't last either. So I think it's really just like making sure you have the right people on the team, and then also just making sure you're prioritizing and resourcing the right work.
That's good. That's good. In my experience, I've seen, the same. If people know what they're doing, why they're doing it, they know you as a leader have their back. Mm-hmm. The ROI on that comes in spades from a positive team culture perspective. Yeah. If you're continually having to pivot and move to wherever the executive or whoever yells loudest, like you're saying, that just it easily derails a positive team right away. No matter what work you're doing. There's
not very many people I know that have the stamina for that kind of whiplash, Yeah. Yep. It's just, it's dizzying, and it's just not at all rewarding work. Teams that are constantly busy but never produce anything.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's not that people aren't working hard. They are, but they're just not productive. They're not
Yeah.
performing. And that's
Yeah.
frustrating too.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. So we're going to pivot a little bit here, ask a question. Can you describe a moment when you had to make a tough ethical decision?
There's definitely been times where I've been faced with making the right decision for my team and the company versus the right decision politically. And most of the time it's usually around those big business transformation initiatives that nobody wants to touch, because like those projects are the projects that get people, I always say this, promoted or fired. You're either up or out.
Yeah. Wow,
And
that's
it's
good.
because it really opens up a lot of opportunity for just inflammatory reactions. No one wants to be the person who comes in and just blows up a system that they inherited that's not what the business needs anymore, but that, the person who originally designed and implemented it still there, loves it, thinks it's great, but everybody else hates it.
Yeah.
Those are just really tough conversations to have. And you can just kind of leave it alone, and do what your boss thinks you should do, even though it's not the right move for your stakeholders or the company. That's the unique opportunity and also responsibility of being a leader in IT. We are the common thread throughout the entire company. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that we are connecting the dots across the company. I can't just think about this application because I have to think about the upstream and the downstream applications and the user experience and the data needs up there and down there as well. I can't just make a siloed decision that's going to satisfy, one person, even if it means that it's,
Yeah.
I got
it
throw
plays
a match in the gas tank,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it plays back to the positive team culture stuff too, right? It all plays into that because it's easy to let it stay and fester.
That's a good point. I mean, and that's the other thing, is it's setting the right example for your team, making sure that they know they need to make the right decisions for the company, not just self-serving.
That plays well into the next question. What role does feedback play in your leadership? How do you both give and receive it?
For me, it's huge. I like to think that I'm a pretty self-aware and intuitive person, but yeah. But I mean, I've also come to realize that it's never a bad thing to just double check and make sure that the message that I'm delivering or the approach that I'm trying to take or the solution that we're going to deliver, making sure that it's landing on people and impacting them in a way that I'm intending, because it doesn't always come across that way, So, constantly soliciting feedback on that. I think also this is specifically being in IT and being a service to the business, making sure that our stakeholders are happy with what we're delivering. And sometimes that means you have to open the door to have a difficult conversation about maybe people on your team. I would much rather have that conversation directly with that person than have them come over the top and then have that conversation with my boss,
Yep.
So yeah, I think soliciting feedback is definitely huge for me. And delivering feedback, it's tricky. I think our, teams, people, they want to be led by people that are going to challenge them, but also reward them, but also have that difficult conversation with them.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes to deliver, especially when it's negative feedback,
Yep.
But I think if you do it in a way where you walk into the conversation just assuming positive intent, and with an intention to deliver positivity, while also just being very direct but diplomatic,
Yeah.
There's an author a book that I read not too long ago, Radical Candor. Have you seen that book?
Yep.
Yes. And she talks about how clear is kind. Being clear with your feedback and being direct about it. You're actually doing that employee a disservice if you don't give them that feedback. Because
that's so true. That's 100% true. Yep.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really good. Moving on to the next question. How do you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
Yeah, I think it is really just leaning into the uncomfortable and taking risks and picking up projects and initiatives that are just the right balance of, oh, I know how I'm going to solve this, but also this scares the crap out of me. This is really scary.
Yep.
When I think back on the most challenging teams or projects that I've been on in my career, I look back, that's the time that I was growing the most. There's that that saying, Ginny Rometty, growth and comfort can't coexist.
Yeah, that's good.
It's so good. And it's true. I tell my kids this too, even like you're always exactly where you're supposed to be, even when it doesn't make sense and even when it's uncomfortable, and especially when it's uncomfortable, because those are the moments that are going to stretch you for sure.
Yeah. Wow. That's like, I hadn't heard. I mean, I've heard probably summarizations of that quote. I've never heard. That's mind blowing stuff. That's really good.
It's a good one.
And
I think
so true.
It's grounding too, because when you're in those moments and you're in those situations where it's like, God, this is so uncomfortable. Oh, this is so frustrating. How am I going to get through this? Am I going to fix this? It really requires a deeper level of thinking and problem solving, and like tapping into your own skills of influence. Like I always tell my team, we got to draw a bigger circle here. Like we're missing something here. We got to draw. We're not seeing the whole thing. Let's draw a bigger circle. And unless you're like forced and pressured into that situation, then you just don't really learn those skills.
Yeah. Last but not least, what leadership book has influenced you most, and why?
Yeah, this is a tough question, because there's so many great books out there. I'm a huge Ben Horowitz fan. Hard Thing About Hard Things, great book. Great. Phoenix Project, you recommended that book to me, I think like 10 years ago. That was a life changer. But I think if I have to pick just one book, it's The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni.
That's good. Sitting right back here.
I mean, it's totally shaped how I build and lead teams, honestly. Because I think the whole notion of the whole realization of the fact that you can build a team of the smartest, most credentialed people with all of the certifications and all of the degrees, but it doesn't mean that they're going to work well together. So just making sure that, like, again, going back to the whole prioritization and, making sure that the team is accountable to each other and they're all kind of rowing in the same direction. Like, that is the key to building performing teams, is the people on the team. We learned about Patrick Lencioni by probably 15 years ago. And he's just, everything that he comes out with is gold, and it's true. It's really all about that team health, the organizational health. I mean, you prioritize that and you realize that it's all about that. It's all about the cross-functional and cross-team collaboration and cohesion. You can throw anything at a team like that and they'll handle it no problem. But you throw something really tricky in front of a team that, again, like highly credentialed, but they don't know how to work together, like they'll get nothing done. Yeah.
Well, and then having the team profile, right, of the humble, hungry, and smart, right? Mm-hmm. So making that as, individual attributes that we can hire and measure against easily, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can teach skills all day long, right? Yeah. Especially in IT, absolutely. Right? If they've got the aptitude and they've got the fit for the culture of what you're looking for, mm-hmm. I'd much rather have that any day of the week, and then, send them to some classes and fill in the gaps. Because that, going back again to positive team culture, mm-hmm. right, is so important,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. It's so true. There's plenty of opportunities. I mean, that's what Go One does. We're an online learning aggregator, content aggregator. So there's plenty of opportunities to upskill and cross skill, but I mean, it starts and ends with the individual.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's really good. Well, Stacie, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. My hope is that people continue, or that see these things at different stages in their careers, and, just starting out, wanting to be where you are today, or even people that are past where we want to be, but maybe able to gain some insights based off of this. So, again, I really, really appreciate your time, and insights, and, they're invaluable, and you just as a person is awesome. And,
thanks,
definitely,
Joe.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
It's been super fun. It was really fun. I really appreciate that you, out of all of the people you have in your network, that you tapped me on the shoulder and asked me to participate in this. It's just so awesome. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Having Stacie on today's episode was a true pleasure, as she shared so many thoughtful observations from her leadership story. Thank you for joining us on this week's edition of A Leader Story. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe to help more people discover these inspiring leadership stories. And don't forget to tune in every Tuesday for new episodes. See you next week, and keep writing your own unique leadership story.